again, you go to the back of the line, and I'm done with you.
So the line's been drawn in the sand here, Dan. KiLynn King essentially saying no more title shots for Marina Tucker if she can't win the title here tonight. Oh, and just like that.
Welcome back to another episode of CCW Insider, where you hear about the matches and stories from wrestling's last territory, Coastal Championship Wrestling. I'm Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBellTime.com, a website and database tracking pro wrestling from around the world. In episode number 2, I sit down with CCW Women's World Champion KiLynn King. Now, KiLynn has a tremendous story, and she has become quite the CCW mainstay in recent months. I'm also going to be playing some clips from KiLynn King's feud with Marina Tucker. That's actually how we're going to get things kicked off on this week's episode. So, listen in to the roar of the crowd as Dan Evans and the manager of champions, Bill Alfonso, call the action as KiLynn King becomes the new CCW Women's World Champion. I'm talking with CCW World Women's Champion KiLynn King, who defends her title against Ashley Dubois on Friday, April 22nd at CCW St. Lucie Showdown. Good morning, KiLynn.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. There's so much to talk about between your championship win and your upcoming matches and stuff like that. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about your journey. You did an interview with Denise Salcedo earlier this year. It was absolutely eye-opening to me. And, we always hear legends like Mick Foley talking about living in their cars and barely earning enough money to make it to the next town and stuff. And I think maybe as wrestling fans, we look at that and automatically think, gee, I'm glad things aren't like that anymore. But in doing so, I think we overlook the struggles that people like yourself go through to succeed in wrestling. And I wondered, I think we'd be doing fans a service if you could tell people a little bit about your experiences when money kind of got short in coming up.
Yeah, my my decisions when it came to making wrestling like the day and night commitment probably wasn't the best decisions to make. Like I moved halfway across the world to get my wrestling training started. And when I got here, I had like maybe $500 to my name before I even had a job. I literally lived paycheck to paycheck. I was lucky if I had 50 cents in my bank account before we got paid. And I had a very hard time holding down a job because whenever they would ask me about my schedules, I would tell them, I can't work any of these days. And they'd be like, excuse me? I'd be like, well, I'm a wrestler. Wrestling is, commitment number one. And the job works around that, not vice versa. So I had a really hard time holding a job down, which is why I was never financially stable my first couple of years as a wrestler. There was one point where I was living with my brothers, and then the only way we could afford to live together was because there was like 4 of us in one household.
Mhm.
Then after that, after we all went our separate ways, I moved in with a wrestling buddy of mine, but I was so broke at the time that I ended up having to leave because I didn't want our friendship to be ruined by the fact that I couldn't pay rent. Um, and then I ended up moving in with a complete stranger who was a friend of a buddy that I worked with because she needed someone to live with or someone to help pay the rent. And never met her before, very strange lady, but thank God, like she just let me do my own thing. I just showed up to sleep at her house, and then I went off to work and stuff like that. So there was a lot of really bizarre scenarios that I ended up in just because wrestling was numero uno, and the financial situation. I didn't act like an adult when it came to that stuff. I just said, nah, man, wrestling is the thing. We're gonna do that. Um, Finances be damned. So, right before, like the year before COVID, I finally got a financially stable job that gave me a schedule that I could keep. And in order not to go completely broke and become homeless, my schedule was I would work overnights at the Orlando airport. I would work from like 8 p.m. to like 7, 8 a.m. I would do that Sunday through Friday. Friday morning, I'd get off of work, hop in a car with some strangers, drive all weekend show to show, and then Sunday night, get out, take a shower, and go right back to work. So that was my life leading up to COVID. And then when COVID hit, I lost my job, and I thought for sure, okay, this is it. I'm finally going to be homeless. And thankfully, my boyfriend, uh, we were at the point in a relationship where it made sense to move in together. Not long after that, Billy Gunn hit me up about AEW, and I was able to start taking my journey with them. But even before I went to AEW, like before unemployment and all that stuff kicked in, I had maybe like $200 in my bank account. Because that's just like, I was always one of those people where it's like, okay, I'll put a little bit aside for the finances, but then all this has to go to wrestling, merch, gear, like all that stuff. And again, like it's one of those things that you look back on and like nobody's parents would ever teach their child like, hey, this is how you should handle your finances or that's not how you should make decisions. But that's what I did because there was always this instinct that if I put that secondary, there was always a chance that like I would lose the focus on wrestling and I wouldn't be where I am right now. So
It feels like, dues paid in full. It feels like, when I
yeah.
hear that story.
Yeah. And it's crazy too because when you're first starting out as a wrestler, you're lucky if you make 20 bucks at a show, right? And so I would hop, like I said earlier, I would hop in the car with strangers and we would have to split the car between like, I don't know, 8 people just so we
Oh,
could
wow.
all give them a little bit of gas because like if you know you're only going to be making this much on a show, you want to make sure that everybody can contribute to the person whose car it is to give them enough gas that we were all still leaving with a little something. So my wrestling paychecks would literally go towards gas and something to eat, and then maybe a couple bucks for the bus later on that week.
Wow.
So it was a rough time. It's one of those things where I'm very much underselling it. There was a lot more to it. There was one point where I was so financially broke. This was like the first 2 years after I moved to Florida that I would walk like my job was like 20 minutes away from where we lived. I would walk halfway to my job, take a bus there, and then I would bring clothes to change into. And then after I was done with my shift, I would run home. And it was like a 10-mile hiatus.
Wow.
Like it was
That's
it
funny.
was far. And that's what I would do to save money. Like it was a very crazy rough situation. I ate Dollar Tree for like 2, 3 years just so I could have a few extra bucks in my account for things and so I could afford school and all that stuff. But when it's something you really want, you just whatever it takes. And that's where my mindset was because I had waited until I was almost 24, 25 to get into wrestling. And in women years, that's kind of like a late start. We're trying to break that mold, but in most people's eyes, that's a late start. So in my head, it was like a do or die situation. I was like, I already waited so long to pursue this. I said, so we're going to go balls to the walls and we're not going to make any excuses. And that's how my journey was. But that's how a lot of people's journeys are. We just don't talk about it a lot.
No, and like I said in the beginning, like we hear those stories from the legends, right? But we don't hear them these days. So that's why I think it's so valuable that you're telling your story, because I think fans need to appreciate that,
Yeah.
and what you all are doing for, for yourself and to entertain us. But I guess, was there ever a time that you were totally burned out and ready to quit and pursue something else when facing all these struggles?
Um, yes and no. So it's kind of there are numerous occasions where I could tell you that I just sat there in my own thoughts going, why am I putting myself through all of this? But at the same token, in those same moments of thinking, I would think about all of the moments that led up to me finally transitioning into becoming a professional wrestler. Wrestling was something I wanted since I was a young kid. It was something I avoided because of the circumstances of my life. So I went on this very wild journey of pursuing all these different things that ironically helped me evolve to become a better performer. So like dance, martial arts, theater. I studied creative writing, so that helped my creatives. Like I studied a lot of different things, pursued a lot of different avenues, played a bunch of sports, just to lead up to finally being like, okay, I'm gonna stop denying the one thing I want, because I would all these things I would pursue, I would be somewhat decent at. But when it came down to like getting better at them, there was never that little fire inside me that was like, all right, let's do this. But when wrestling came, like I remember the first time I ever had that thought, like, is this really worth it? I thought about that whole journey. I was like, you're damn right it's worth it. And I just like I got so infuriated with myself for even thinking that. So there's definitely those moments where we feel like that, or where I feel like that, but then I think about all of those trials and tribulations and mental hurdles that I had to overcome to do it. And I'm just like, nah, man. I said there's an end goal here. So we're just gonna keep pushing through it. Like, I mean, I can even tell you, like just recently, there was a stint where I wasn't home for like almost 3, 4 weeks. I would be home for like less than 24 hours to do laundry. And then I'd be back on the road doing it. And I was just so exhausted. My body was so beat up and I was so tired. And I'm like, why the hell am I doing this to myself? But then I would go back and watch all like where I started and where I'm at now. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing it, because this is a really cool thing I'm doing with my life. And I waited a long ass time to do it. So we're going to make sure that we're going to leave a legendary story behind us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Is there any, going through that, is there any wisdom that you can give to people that might be in a similar place right now?
Um, the one piece of advice, and I think I've said this in interviews before, the one piece of advice that I always give people who are getting into the wrestling business is find a legitimate school ran by a legitimate wrestler who has not only found success in this business, but has produced successful wrestlers. Um, that is not something I knew when I got into wrestling, but I was very, very fortunate that my journey led me to the right school right away. Um, I can't tell you how many people I've met whose wrestling journeys have gotten halted because they threw all their money into a school and they barely trained them. They barely paid attention to them. They gave them attention for maybe like a month and then said, okay, go out and do indies. And then they're like, wait, what? And then you have all these people who don't know how to work and it's unsafe and all that stuff. And so the one thing I will always be very, very grateful for is, as bizarre as my tale was of how I found Team 3D Academy, it was the best school that I could have possibly been trained at in the area that I was in. The Dudleys and Billy Gunn and John Cruz de Rios, like everybody that trained me while I was there trained me incredibly well, whether it was physically, psychology wise, just being prepared for what other wrestlers are like, what the independents are like versus the big leagues, and like the etiquette that you have to have. Like all those things were immediately taught to me right off the bat, and I got every penny's worth that I gave to that school. So that's one of the biggest things I will ever forever preach, is find, and that's like the most important thing, is legitimate school, legitimate successful wrestler who has also produced legitimate successful wrestlers. Because obviously if all of those things are present at a school, they've got the right formula. So
Right. So you mentioned in, I think it was May of 2020, you made your AEW debut, and you become sort of a regular on their television and streaming, and you were at All Out. So as someone that works for many different promotions, what lessons have you gained from working on the national stage that you bring back and utilize at places like Mission Pro, Coastal Championship Wrestling?
I think definitely understanding cameras and angles and finding your moments. So that's definitely something I picked up from there. Because when I was doing a lot of indie shows, it was just floor cams. You
Hmm.
didn't always have a hard cam and stuff like that, and you didn't have multiple cameras. So when I started doing AEW, that was like one of the biggest things I had to learn was understanding where all the camera was, understanding how when to pause and find those cameras so they could capture you and get those moments. Um, and I'm still to this day figuring that because there are some days where I'll go into a match and I'll be completely at ease and I'll be like, yeah, this camera, that camera, this camera. And then there are other matches where I'm just like, ah, ah, ah. So I mean, it's still a learning process. But the other thing too, I think that I learned while at AEW that I'm trying to translate into my independent wrestling is bringing that intensity. There wasn't always like my work was never bad, but there was always something lacking in it. And even sometimes my transitional movement, I just felt it looked so slow and unintentful. And that was something I noticed change after AEW was the fact that every my movement had more purpose. My kicks, my slams, and any spots that I ran, there was a little bit more purpose and intensity behind them, and that's something that I really appreciated because I think those little subtleties are what make a somewhat decent match into a great match. Because I've had matches where I feel like we really didn't do anything, and I'll have people come up to me afterwards and be like, "Yo, that was great," and I'm like, really? Because we didn't do shit. And then we'll go back and watch it, and it was just like, oh, it's because of how intense we were being, so people were really into it. Because there's nothing better because fans are going to see a lot of the same things over and over again on a show. It's inevitable, right?
Right.
So the way that you make it, you keep them captivated is the different way that you execute it. And that's something I've always been very passionate about is always making sure, like, if you ever watch me wrestle, you see, like, I throw my stuff hard and I scream. And when something goes really, really good, like, I feel it a lot. And I think that is something that helps differentiate my work from other people's and gets people excited and be like, oh my gosh, like when you hit her, oh, I felt it. And and that's something that really helps fans get into it. And that's something that I learned a lot through AEW.
And well, at AEW, you have worked against at one time or another every person that has ever held a women's title in AEW. You've wrestled them all: Riho,
Yeah.
Nyla Rose, Hikaru Shida, Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, Jade Cargill. You've wrestled them all. So, is there anybody in that company that you haven't faced that you would like to work against, or someone that you have unfinished business with that you need to kind of go back and have another go at?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember.
I mean, I mentioned all the champions, but I think you've probably wrestled just about everybody.
I think I haven't wrestled some of the new girls that are there now. Um, I would love to have another match with Ty Conti. Her and I had a really great match, and it was one of those things where her and I were very like when we found out we were wrestling each other, we were very excited. And then when the match was over, we are like, "Yo, can you imagine if we just had a little bit more time and ability to tell story?" I said we would kill each other. It'd be great. I would love to wrestle her again. So maybe that's my unfinished business answer.
There you go.
And not to like the other person I would really love to wrestle or even tag with is like Ruby Soho. We kind of have
Sure.
similar hair things going on. Or even Anna J. I never wrestled Anna J. Anna
Oh,
J is like one like before they started signing more girls, Anna J was like the one girl I never wrestled. So yeah, that would be a fun matchup because her wrestling has changed a lot since I first met her too. So that would be a really, really cool. We both kick a lot, so we would definitely have a lot of a big strike match.
so your career, in AEW and elsewhere, it's kind of taken you national now, but you've worked at least once per month at Coastal Championship Wrestling. So it must be nice to know that there is a demand right here in Florida for your wrestling and you.
Yeah, I mean, before AEW, Florida has since I started my wrestling career, Florida's been my home base, and now that I'm kind of easing out of AEW a little bit, CCW, like we were transitioning schools and we came to CCW, and it just so happened that they had a storyline they wanted me to be in. And we've been having a great time with it, and being able to be here every week and get those fans excited about the women's division and this beauty right here. Sorry, I'm doing a bad job. This beauty right here, it's really cool because I told Nelly and I told all the guys there, it's like one of the biggest things that's been missing from my career lately is the storytelling and the feuds and all that stuff. It's like I've had all these matches, but I've never had a really big feud, and that's something that we've gotten to do here at CCW. And I got to have a lot of interaction and matches with Marina Tucker, and I think we did a really good job of getting people excited about the stories that we were telling between her and I. And the creative process has been really fun. Just figuring out ways to be absolutely ridiculous with each other is always great. Yeah, I love, no matter where I'm going off to, I love coming back to CCW and knowing that we're gonna continue telling that story and having some really great matches.
You won the CCW championship back in January, and people can go watch that match on a live episode number 70 on YouTube. You appeared after the match to be a little emotional. So I wanted to ask you to tell us about that experience of winning the CCW championship, and what did that moment mean to KiLynn King?
I mean, it's kind of going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, is it's one of those things where you kind of, once you start the journey, you kind of just put your head down and you start grinding, and you don't really pay attention to everything that's happening. Like you do, but you're just trying to get through it, if that makes any kind of sense. So you're going through all these trials and tribulations, you're making all these sacrifices, you're doing all these things that sometimes aren't the greatest decisions, and you're just saying like it'll all be worth it. It'll all be worth it. We're just trying to get, we're just trying to make this happen and be successful and find our foot in this business. And I think winning that title was one of those moments where it hit me, and I was like, it all paid off. It was all worth it. There are people who are invested in my work now, invested in my career, who want me to represent their companies. And to me, that's a big deal. That's a big, that's a lot of trust from somebody who has a company that they run quite a bit, multiple times a month, and they're trying to put it on a grand stage, and they trust you to undertake that task. Like that's a big deal to me, and that's something that I've been working for, so somebody would have that trust in me to give me that opportunity in that position. So when I won the title, it was one of those things where I was kind of in a place of insecurity because I wasn't sure what was going on with AEW. I wasn't sure, what was going, like I had other places that I was talking to, but nothing was for certain. And I was in one of those places where I was like, does anybody give a crap about what I'm doing? Like I'm working so hard, I'm bumping all the time. Like my body kills me. I'm mentally torturing myself all the time, just trying to work and get better and better and better. I was like, does anybody even care? Is anybody paying attention? And then we had that match, and the crowd's reaction when I got the 3 just like blew me away. Because I had only, yes, I worked the Florida scene a lot, but I had only worked at that promotion once before, or not, I shouldn't say that promotion, that venue, that location, the Bash at the Brew. I'd only worked that show once before. So I had no expectations of what this crowd was going to feel when I won the title. And when I got that 3, that crowd lost their, for lack of, sorry, they lost their shit. They were so excited. And it was, I talked to everybody backstage. None of us were expecting that. So it was one of those moments where not only did I have somebody who was putting a lot of trust in me by making me their women's champion, those fans themselves were so incredibly happy with that change. And that was really, really cool to me, because I was like, oh, people do care. People are paying attention. How awesome is that? And yeah, so it was a very emotional moment, because all the days of having no food to eat or almost being homeless, like all of those sacrifices and moving away from home and never seeing my family. I've been home in the last 6 years. I've probably been home to see my family like twice. Like I just recently missed my brother's wedding. Like there's a lot of things that you have to give up and miss out on in order to day in and day out every single week be on it and to matter. So just all those little things, and then the crowd's reaction on top of that, and just having that faith be put in me, just brought some emotion out in me that I wasn't expecting, and I teared up a little bit.
It was a super special moment, and I think even if people go back, and sometimes the energy doesn't always translate on the camera, but if you
Right.
watched that episode, it did. That crowd exploded. Bill Alfonso's on commentary, and he's going crazy. So
Yeah.
it was a really cool moment for sure. You've wrestled her 3 times this year. Is she your biggest rival, you think, so far in your career?
I think so, yeah. I've had a couple I had a bit of a rivalry with Anna Diaz at GWA, but we never had like animosity for each other. It was never like super personal. It was just about wanting to be the women's champion. So I think this is probably the most intense feud I've ever had, and most detailed feud I've ever had, because there is actually like things going on behind the scenes as opposed to just when we're in front of the fans.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do. Like as soon as this feud started, I said we need to have cameras backstage. We need to have people filming backstage because I want it all captured. I want us to do all the things. So that's been like the coolest part of all of this, is just getting to tell the story, not when we're just in front of the fans inside a ring, but all the other details that go into it to really make it a little bit more personal.
I don't want to give anything away about the cage match. I'm sure it'll air on a live really soon, and people will enjoy watching the match without any sort of preview. But a steel cage match in CCW is somewhat rare, and it's never happened
Yeah,
at Bash at the Brew. So I just wonder your thoughts on competing in the first one that's been at Bash at the Brew. And was it your first cage match?
it was my first cage match. Yes. I have to tell you, when I found out we were having it, I was shocked. I was completely shocked. I was like, "Wait, are you sure you want us to have it?" Like, okay. Um, and I even told Nelly too. I was like, "This is gonna be my first cage match, so I'm sorry if I let you down." I don't think we did. I think we did a pretty good job, but yeah, it was wild. Like for me, like I just really wanted to tell that story of the cage being, you know, the weapon, and being the story of the match, and it being the thing that ends it all. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I was really excited about that, and I think it's really cool that in my first like legit feud, is that's where it gets to end at, because like I said, I've never had a feud like this before. And again, that's all of the guys at CCW having faith in me and trusting me to do that, because not only is it a rare thing at CCW, but I think it's a rare thing for women on the indies, period.
We have been talking with CCW Women's World Champion KiLynn King, and we have more KiLynn coming up in just a second. But first, I want to show you the conclusion of match number 2 between KiLynn King and Marina Tucker. The venue is Port St. Lucie. Here it is.
Tucker, oh, she wanted to score some whiplash on King as she jerks her head right back. And now Tucker, this could be the opening she was truly looking for here, Dan. She's going to turn her around. Oh, no. Oh, and she drops King. Neck first across that middle rope. Reverse neck breaker. And the Detroit Barbie is in control. All kinds of leverage going down hard in the middle of that back. Not to mention a neck snap on the way out. Goes for the cover. 1, 2. King able to power out. As KiLynn hanging on here. King able to block those blows. And again, a handful of hair by your former champion. As Tucker now looking to maybe turn the corner and shut the door on KiLynn King. Here we go. Back and forth right in the center of the ring, these two ladies. Catches the boot. Oh, KiLynn's got her. Gonna flip her over. Oh, and KiLynn catches her with a knee. That's gonna stun her. And down goes Tucker. KiLynn, she's gonna try to cover. Lateral press. 2 and 2.5 for the CCW Women's Champion. But Dan, she's starting to pick up some steam. And now's the time for her to capitalize. She has the challenger staggered. She needs to stay on her. And she does, Blake, forearm to the chest. Tucker, though, blocking that one, firing back. They're exchanging blows now. As KiLynn King looks to have Marina Tucker maybe right where she wants her. As Marina Tucker tries a reversal, and King looks to measure up here. Big roundhouse kick attempt. Blocked by Tucker, and she sends King face first into the canvas. And Marina now, the double knees right to the back of the neck. This could be the opening she was looking for. Is she about to win the title for a third time? And somehow she kicks out as KiLynn King. Tucker now going to work with right hands again. King rolling her over. And KiLynn laying waste to Marina Tucker here. You can certainly see the personal issues coming to the forefront between these two ladies. Absolutely, it's been back and forth, nip and tuck the whole way through, Blake. Tucker now with the advantage, slamming King's head into the turnbuckle. Driving her down to the mat. And Tucker now has King down. What does she have in mind here, Blake? She's jawing with the fans, but now you don't see Tucker to go to the top too often. She finds herself in position here. You're correct, Dan. This is certainly rarefied air for Marina Tucker. Well, it definitely backfired on her. This KiLynn King is just clubbing the heck out of her. As KiLynn here goes, King now. Midsection. That's certainly going to take the wind right out of the challenger. And KiLynn now in high-risk territory, Dan. Right in front of us, Blake. It looks like it's going to be a superplex. This women's championship hanging in the balance as Tucker and King fighting back and forth. Tucker has the advantage now. Off that middle turnbuckle. She connects with a blockbuster. Here we go. Hooks the outside leg. New champion on its way. And a 2.5. Somehow KiLynn hangs on. Tremendous second effort by KiLynn King. She is not going to let go of the championship that easy. And Tucker showing signs of frustration now. What is she doing? She's trying to tear off that turnbuckle. And she's enlisting the help of Christopher Costa. Boom! She caught her with a roundhouse boot right to the head. And now KiLynn is that pump handle. Chris Costa, he's worried about that turnbuckle on the near side. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. No. She's got her hands on that belt. Costa, oh wait a minute, Marina Tucker, oh, she's got the title. Just nailed her in the lower back. Costa sees it, and that's got to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this match has been stopped by disqualification, and still your champion, KiLynn King.
So Marina Tucker allows her emotions to get the best of her here. She nails King right in the kidney area with that championship. KiLynn remains the champion.
Attention wrestling fans, the place to be each and every Tuesday is on the Coastal Championship Wrestling YouTube channel, where a new episode of CCW Live Wrestling drops at 7 p.m. Witness the hard-hitting, high-flying action that is synonymous with the longest-running independent wrestling promotion in the southeastern United States. Subscribe today and don't you dare miss it.
I don't think you see a lot of girls get cage matches, especially in Florida. I don't think I've ever seen a girls cage match in Florida. Maybe, I don't know. But so, you know, I was very honored that they trusted me and Marina to have that experience together. Because not only is it a rare occasion, but we got to do it on one of our biggest venues of all, the Bash of the Brew, and that crowd is always so infectious and so energetic. And what a great place to do it at. So I was very, very honored.
Yeah, it was when I spoke to Nilio on the show last week, and he said sometimes the match needs a story, but sometimes the story needs the match. And in this case, the story needed the match. So yes. I think that's a really, interesting distinction. You don't see these cage matches all the time, and I think it's probably because you don't see these stories that much. This has been a great story, a vicious rivalry, like you said, all the backstage attacks, 2 previous matches, one that people can see on a live 70, that's the title change, the rematch on a live 80 that was in Port St. Lucie, and now back to Bash at the Brew for the cage match. So Big
Not to
story,
mention
big match feel.
her attacking me backstage and then attacking me in a public bathroom and then me hiding in her car. There's a lot of things that went down.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your opponent for St. Lucie Showdown. That's April 22nd in Port St. Lucie. Tickets are available at coastalchampionshipwrestlingfl.com. So it's Ashley Dubois, and she's somebody you've faced before, not in
Yes.
CCW, but in AAW. What's different when you face somebody the second time?
In this instance, a huge difference because the first time I wrestled her, we didn't have a lot of time, so our interaction was very, very short. But despite that, not only this, we're gonna have a better stage to have a match on, a more competitive match, but also if you keep up with her work, oh my gosh, she's gotten so good. I just recently watched some footage of her and Katie Arquette, and they had a killer match. And if you know anything about me, whether I like you or don't like you, I want to have a really good competitive match. And I was watching just so many little details about her work since I got to work her has changed. And I'm like, holy cow, like I'm so excited to get back in the ring with her. And I heard it's her birthday that day,
Oh,
or
no.
it's either her birthday or that's the weekend of her birthday. I can't remember. So I might bring her like a little cake. I don't know. We'll see.
Cakes and wrestling never work out well.
Right. So we'll at least save it for post match. I don't want her to get any cake in the ring. So we'll save it for post match. But yeah, no. So I'm very excited for her, and she's always had such a good spirit and good competitive, uh, for lack of a better word, spirit again. Like she's just a really good person. So I'm really, really excited to get in the ring and see what we bring out of each other this time, because like I said, a lot has changed about her wrestling since I last saw her. And I think a little bit has changed about mine too. So I think we'll definitely have a ferocious match, and just we'll have a nice balance between technicality and just beating the crap out of each other. So it'll be good.
So I know you live in Florida now,
Mhm.
but do you think she has the home field advantage? She's not far from home. Does that make a difference?
Is she from Port St. Lucie?
Fort Lauderdale, I think.
Oh, Fort Lauderdale. Well, I'm from the Fort Lauderdale. Well, I didn't grow up there. She grew
You're
up
from
there?
Painesville, Ohio, right?
I'm from
I could
Painesville,
quote something like it's not a
Ohio.
real place, but we know it is.
It is a real place. I started adding that into my entrance because I thought that'd be really funny, because a lot of people are just like, Painesville. That sounds fake. And I'm like, no, it's real. I was born and raised. So I told the announcer at a recent show I just did, I'm like, hey, can you like add that? Could be like, from Painesville, Ohio, and yes, it is a real place. And then my name or whatever. I was like, yeah, I think I like that. I think we're gonna do that. I mean, there's definitely the possibility. The last time I was in Port St. Lucie, it wasn't the vibe wasn't leaning towards KiLynn King, because I've never wrestled there before. You have that's the thing that people have to remember is CCW has been in Florida and has been around Florida for a while now.
Mhm.
And a lot of the people who have helped build the company and built the divisions that are known there are probably going to end up getting a better reception than somebody who just started, especially if somebody who just started and won the title at a different location and nobody got to be a part of it and witness it. So it's just a matter of me showing up and showing out and hopefully getting the people behind me, because I love the people. I got nothing against them unless they boo me and then we have a problem. No, I'm just kidding. But they cheer for her, they cheer for me. We're still gonna have a really good match, and as much as I love a good vibe from the crowd, it doesn't affect my ability to work, to fight, and to remain the champion. So I think we'll be good. But I mean, it is her birthday, so it'll be nice to have people behind her there. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure. So I guess last question. You and somewhat maybe you have answered it a little bit, but I'll ask you to take a different spin on it. You've achieved a lot in wrestling already, and I know there's much more ahead of you. If there is a mini KiLynn King out there watching this interview, someone that wants to be just like KiLynn King when she grows up, what advice do you have for them? I know you mentioned a bit about the training school, but if there's the 8-year-old girl right now, what advice do you give her?
the things that I dealt with when I were a kid, I had a lot of insecurities. I was always told that I was too tall, too pale, too loud, that I talked too much, all that good stuff. And every single thing that I was told was wrong with me when I was younger is what makes me great today in the wrestling business.
Wow.
So I would say to anybody who's younger, who's looking at me and seeing similarities or seeing something they aspire to be, I would say anything that makes you different, that some people want to make you feel weird about, nah, man, because I guarantee that's the most special thing about you, so hold on to that.
Excellent. Well, you can follow KiLynn King on Twitter at KiLynn King. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, at KiLynn King, Twitter, Instagram. I have a Facebook as well. I post a lot of the stuff about CCW on there. And if you ever want merch from the King, but you can't get it at a show, or I don't have the right size or something for you, you can go to fullygimmicks.com, type in my name, and I got a bunch of merch on there as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you at St. Lucie Showdown on April 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. What a great episode with KiLynn King. We have more plans for the coming weeks, but don't be afraid to drop us a suggestion on who you think should be on the show. Follow us on social media on Minutes to Bell Time on Facebook and Instagram, and Mins to Bell Time on Twitter. And be sure to watch a live wrestling every Tuesday on the CCW YouTube channel, and follow Coastal Championship Wrestling on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next week.
We still have no official.
You have been watching CCW Insider, produced by Minutes to Bell Time in association with Coastal Championship